Hello, my name is Cameron Sabat, and welcome to Cutting to the Case. Today we're joined by Dr. Dan Morgan, an Antarctic glacial geologist and associate professor of the practice of earth and environmental sciences at Vanderbilt University. For more than 2 decades, he's conducted fieldwork in Antarctica, particularly in the McMurdo Dry Valleys, using the geological record to reconstruct how glaciers in the Antarctic ice sheet have changed over millions of years. His research uses techniques like cosmogenic-nuclide dating, geochemistry, field mapping, and numerical modeling to understand when and where ancient glaciers moved and what that history can tell us about Antarctica's future. Morgan also leads students on Antarctic research expeditions, giving him extensive experience with the human side of polar science, extreme cold, isolation, expedition planning, emergency preparedness, team dynamics, leadership, and decision making when help may be far away. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be here and chat about all things Antarctica and deep field.
Absolutely. So let's get started. What first drew you to Antarctic glacial fieldwork and remote expeditions?
Yeah, it's something that I didn't think deeply about really until I was thinking about graduate school. And so I was an undergraduate. I majored in geology and math, and those were really majors that I kind of just stumbled into because they were classes I liked to take. And somebody suggested, "Oh, this professor's good. We have to take a science class. Let's just do that." And I really fell in love with understanding, you know, how Earth got to be the way it is, why it looks the way today, how humans have adapted to live on it, and how sort of, billions of years of Earth's history have made this moment that we exist on, but it's really a precious moment. And it's a lot of kind of, rare and unique things that have happened to get us to this point, and really made me want to help understand it and preserve it, take better care of it. And so when I was an undergraduate, I was thinking, all right, how the earth changes is the thing I'm interested in, and how environments change, how climates change. And I knew that polar environments were going to be changing fastest as we keep emitting greenhouse gases and things are going to keep warming up. And so I wanted to study something around polar environments. And I didn't know if that might be Alaska and Greenland or down in Antarctica. But I applied to a lot of graduate programs. I met the person who became my eventual PhD advisor, and he was doing projects down in Antarctica and kind of convinced me that, this is the place to go and see. It is the world's biggest ice sheet. It's where 90% of all of our ice is. It's the
Wow.
most potential rise to sea level. If you want to study the most potential impact to humans, going to Antarctica is the place to go. So yeah, I got lucky in that sense and found a great advisor who could help get me down there and do research there.
Goodness. And I can't even imagine what it must be like to conduct research there, even visit. It's definitely on my bucket list. So,
Yeah.
for someone who's never experienced it, including basically 100% of Earth's population, what does an actual day of field work in Antarctica look like?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always say it's a lot of fun. And in some ways, it's very simple because our goals are really to get up in the every day, stay warm, and collect samples, which means hiking around and sometimes digging pits or breaking off chunks of rocks that we want. But I mean, a typical day, we actually keep a fairly regular schedule down there, even though the sun's up 24 hours a day the entire time we're there. And we always daydream about experimenting with longer cycles, or you could work really late and sleep in. We try to keep a pretty regular schedule and keep ourselves, in certain habits. So we get up at 7 every morning. We try to be in the kitchen tent by 7:30 a.m., which means you need to put on all your layers of clothes and all your base layers and your extra socks and your midweight layers, and then we have big overalls and giant jackets and gloves, and get out of your sleeping tent, walk into the kitchen tent. We have breakfast, we'll have a morning meeting, we'll talk about our goals for the day. And then we pile into our backpack a bunch of food. As geologists, we're mostly collecting rock or soil samples. So
Mhm.
our instruments are some shovels, we've got little rock hammers, little sledgehammers, lots of plastic bags and canvas bags to collect samples and store them in, Sharpies to label everything, notebooks that we've got to record it, GPS. So all that goes into a backpack. Backpack weighs maybe 20 pounds when we leave camp because it's got a bunch of extra layers, a couple of thermoses of water and things. And then we go on day hikes from there, and we might hike anywhere from 3, 4, or maybe up to 5 or 6 miles to go collect some samples.
A
So then
lot.
we've all got 20 pounds of samples in our bags, and then we have to hike, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 miles back to camp. And, we stop, we take lots of breaks, eat snacks, make sure we're hydrated, put on lots of sunscreen. We're putting on sunscreen 3, 4 times a day down there. And coming back to our base camp that we've got set up where our kitchen is and our sleep tents and things. And there's some data we've got to download and enter into spreadsheets and keep track of things. And usually when we get back to camp, the mingles are hydrating and stuffing ourselves full of food and getting as much in us as we can before we kind of crash into bed and do it again the next day. So,
That sounds so much fun and also very, very, very difficult. Um, 6 hours
we're
is no six
yeah,
miles.
yeah. I mean, they're not super long, but it's a lot more active than we're probably used to being when we're here at a university and we're sitting on our desks and we're writing email and so no, 12 miles in a day isn't that long, but I always say there's no trails where we're going. So we're walking across really uneven, rocky terrain. Glaciers are really good at depositing lots of different rocks and sand and pebbles. So it's
Wow.
always lumpy and a little, it's not a
Okay.
nice smooth paved trail we're on,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And we often you kind of have to navigate and figure out where to walk and what's going to be the easiest path. Everything's loose, so we're always hiking with hiking poles and things because I would fall 3 or 4 times a day if I didn't have a pole to catch myself and keep myself upright that way. And so yeah, it's a different kind of hiking. We're really physically active. I sort of like to say though, we're out in the cold the whole time and we're just eating calories to stay warm. So one thing I love about it is that you just get to eat as much as you want. And you can't put on weight while we're out there because one, we're moving around a lot, but you're just burning calories to stay warm while we're out there. And so yeah, I have a sweet tooth, so you get to eat lots of candy, lots of chocolate bars,
Wow.
lots of carbohydrates to just get some quick energy in you and stay warm and burn things up and I like that part of it. So it's that part's a
You're
lot of
really
fun.
selling this. You're really selling this well. I mean, no
I
wonder all the
love, yeah,
Vanderbilt
as
students want to
many
come.
chocolate bars as you can eat, right? When I talk to the second graders and do outreach, it's like, yeah, we don't take a bath for 6 weeks and you get to eat as many chocolate bars as you want. Who wants to come? And they
Wow.
all go, great, you know?
That sounds
So
great.
yeah,
Yes,
no,
yes.
there's a lot I really like about it. We don't have internet while we're out there, so I don't check my email so we camp for about 6 weeks usually. So for 6 weeks, no email that I'm writing. We have satellite phones and can call home, and now there's satellite texting devices and things. But we don't need internet while we're out there, so it's something I don't mind missing that part of it. We
Yes,
certainly miss
yes.
home and families and things, but it's nice
Of
to
course.
to get out of the digital world for a little bit and really, I mean, we are in a very physical world while we're down there, and I
Oh, yes.
I really enjoy that part of it.
And you must feel so grounded. I mean, even more than just going camping in, Shenandoah or wherever here in Virginia. I
Yeah,
I don't know the analogy for near Tennessee, but um,
yeah,
the
yeah,
places that we leave in Virginia, you can still see the city lights,
yeah,
reflecting in the clouds, and no matter what you do, you really can't escape. So it must be so special. And
yeah,
and that kind of led me to my other question, which is what happens because this connects to we've interviewed astronauts on this podcast who've dealt with extreme isolation in small group environments in extreme
mhm,
environments for extended periods of time. We've had neurosurgeons who are cooped up in the hospital for like 36 hours at a time working with a small team of other neurosurgeons. What happens psychologically to a human working elite performance in extreme
yeah.
environments for extended periods of time?
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting part of it. And I do a lot where I take undergraduate students down who have never experienced anything quite like this. And that sensation, the travel down to Antarctica is fun and exciting. We fly to New Zealand, then the Air Force flies us down to McMurdo Station. and then a helicopter will take us from McMurdo Station, fly us out to the McMurdo Dry Valleys, which is about an hour away or so. And then we set up our camps there. We move a couple of times during the season, but when the we drop everything off, that we unload everything, and then the helicopter flies away, it's a really eerie feeling. And
Oh,
you realize,
goodness.
okay, we are really alone now, and it's just five of us. And 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 the wilderness part sets in. It gets really quiet, gets really still, and
Wow.
there are almost no smells out there. Part of that is because your nose is frozen the whole time, but there's no plants growing out there where we are. It's just barren and rocky and snow patches here and there. And so it's an intense feeling. And we do our best to deal with it. I mean, it's fun because the camp we set up is fairly homey, right? We have this nice kitchen tent that's about 10 feet by 20 feet, stands up to about 7 or so feet in the middle. And we actually kind of have fun making that our little home. We spend almost all our waking hours when we're not hiking in the kitchen tent, kind of get to decorate it. We've got all these boxes and things you can draw on. We hang up lots of things. We've got signs in there. And so it's fun to make a little home. It's got a propane stove in it that we can use to heat up melt water. We get to drink a lot of hot drinks. You get fairly warm in there. And so yeah, you're trying to make kind of a little homey feeling with all of this.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and but yeah, the isolation, we're gone for holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, New Year's, anything, we're kind of gone. And,
Hmm.
for 20, 21-year-olds, that can be hard. It's often their first time they're away for these kind of events. And we do our best to have our own traditions and have fun things. We get to celebrate them our way. I do like to bring, silly little presents to slowly
Oh,
bring out during the time there, whether that's silly sunglasses or little puzzles that we get to solve. I brought one of those inflatable couches this year because it packs down
really?
something, and then you can kind of just inflate it and bring it. So you get to have a
Yeah.
few sort of silly things. Um, I will say McMurdo Station loves costume parties and things. So this year I
Wow.
brought them all silly like fleece animal outfits. So we had a dog and a lizard and a dinosaur and a cat and you know little things to keep our spirits up that you can kind of slowly bring out during the day and or during the expedition and keep spirits up that way. And so yeah,
Oh.
we do, and I will say we do a lot of training beforehand, right? So it's not like this is our first time taking a trip together.
Hmm.
The program that I wrote, it was an NSF sponsored grant that really was designed to be a training program for undergraduates to get into polar science because it certainly is hard to enter. And I'm really the only PI that's designed a program to use exclusively undergraduates as the research assistants and field assistants. But so they actually all worked with me the summer before we went. And so we started in June and they're learning lab methods and the way we're going to process samples and on samples we'd previously collected. But we take some camping trips, we do some really long hikes. We took a little trip actually up. There's a polar rock repository at Ohio State University.
Wow.
We're meeting with other Antarctic scientists. And actually, what was great is the data they produced at the end of that summer, we were actually able to present at an Antarctic conference that was down in Chile. So we had to take an international trip before we even went down to Antarctica. But again, get used to spending time together, eating lots of meals together, flying. And that did reduce a lot of the stress around the trip down to Antarctica because we practiced and done a lot of that. Um, then in the fall semester, the students basically take a study abroad semester with me. So they're taking
Wow.
18 credit hours with
Are
me
you
because
kidding?
so we leave November 1st to go down to Antarctica. We don't come back till, I think we came back January 5th. And so they can't just take a calculus class or a history or a Spanish class, right? We just leave too early. But so I teach a couple classes that are open to other students, and we just teach it on an accelerated schedule. So they take a history of Antarctic exploration class where we read about Scott and Shackleton and Amundsen and early explorers. But it's fun because there are a lot of mistakes they make. There are a lot of lessons you can learn from those early explorers. Shackleton is one of these classic leadership examples of,
Ego and
yeah,
things
everything goes
happen.
wrong, but he keeps everyone alive, and
It's
and they
incredible.
get through it. And
Incredible.
so that's really fun. And we take a glacial geology class. We take a 5-day field trip to Colorado, again, to practice collecting samples and using the maps we're going to use. So there's a lot of training. And then, yeah, we leave November 1st here from Nashville, fly down to New Zealand. Air Force flies us down to McMurdo, and we do some more training in McMurdo. I will say one of the things that's great about the U.S. Antarctic program is that there's really an incredible support team down at McMurdo Station, and that's helping train us, that's helping us get to the field. I mean, they're helicopter pilots that are down there that are flying us out there. They're incredible. All the training we get from instructors on sort of cold weather training. We get some training going out and making snow walls and building snow trenches and sort of emergency situation training down there. There's a lot of, we have to learn how to use the satellite phones and all the walkie-talkies and all the communication and what the expectations are and the daily check-ins. And so anyway, there's a lot of
Wow.
incredible support we get from
Wow.
a whole team of people down there that's really incredible. I mean, the U.S. Antarctic program is wonderful that way. And and then we get to spend 6 weeks collecting the samples that we want they'll tell us how the ice sheet has changed in the past and what were the sources of those changes. So some of my questions are simple, like where were there glaciers? When were they there?
Mhm.
But figuring out, well, what caused them to change? Were there changes in the amount of snowfall or changes in the amount of temperature or changes in sea level? And so then we can really pinpoint what were the more specific climate changes that
Mhm.
drove those changes in the past so that we make better predictions of how things will change in the future, understand, yeah, what drove them, how fast they changed, how much they changed, so that we can anticipate then, all right, how fast and how much might sea level rise in the next 50 years or 100 years, or projecting, to 1,000 years, for example. So it's an incredible experience. There's a lot of training that we do here on campus, abroad, and I'll say that we get a lot from the U.S. Antarctic program down there as well. So that, yeah, when it's five of us in the field to get dropped off, we we've practiced a lot. We're trying to get used to it as we can, and yeah, and do we do a pretty good job of getting through it with a
Yeah.
lot of laughter and a lot of
Wow.
silliness.
Well,
Yeah, we
it's
have.
really you that's creating the culture. I can tell. I mean, you are a wonderful person to go explore.
Well, I have to say that the students really are incredible, right? And that part's really fun, and they buy into it, and they're willing to follow me down to the bottom of the earth, and they do a great job though of keeping each other up. I will say, young people today are much better communicators than I was as a college
Wow.
student, and they're more in touch with things. And yeah, we do a lot to try and create a culture of good open communication and checking in and making sure people are doing well. But the
Of course.
students have a lot of those skills already that I'm impressed by. And yeah,
Yes.
so there's a lot that they bring.
That's so wonderful. And I did want to ask because when people think about Antarctic expeditions, they think of danger and excitement, and the things you're explaining sound very much like a almost like a Christmas trip. And so, are there are there moments where have you ever had a moment in the field where you've realized the situation could become extremely, like genuinely dangerous, or is it
Yeah.
generally safe and
So that's a really fun question. And my example of the most dangerous thing we experienced is sounds really simple, but it kind of illustrates what the risks are down there. So, where we go in Antarctica, it's below freezing year round. Average temperatures, well, Celsius are probably like -20 Celsius. So, right around 0 Fahrenheit. And it's sunny in the summer, but it doesn't warm up that much, and it always is below freezing. And so one of the main concerns really is making sure we have drinking water. And we have to have a stove that works, that we can melt snow for drinking water. Most of the places we go, there aren't streams. Some of the places we go there, I will say there are some streams and some, especially towards New Year's. But most of the places we are, there are no streams. There's nothing that will melt. Um, So one year when we flew in for our camp put in and the helicopters dropped us off and we started setting up our camp and our kitchen tent and we set up the stove and we have the boxes we put them on or like they're like wooden boxes and a little table and we're like, all right, let's find the matches. We can't find the matches anywhere. And we're digging through, and they get put in because they're flammable, they get put in these sort of carefully packed boxes because you don't want one to strike when you're in the helicopter.
Sure.
And we go through every box and we open up everything and we can't find them and realize we're in a lot of trouble if we can't start a fire
Oh my
and do
goodness.
this, right?
No.
So we actually were calling back to the main station, like you might need to come pick us up or bring us matches, like and they don't. It's not like that again because they're flammable. It's not like the helicopter pilots just have some spares
No.
around. Um, and then finally, interestingly, we look in the first aid kit and find some matches that were in the first aid kits. We've got, a little box of 20 and we'll be fine for a couple of days and the helicopter can come back out and bring us the box of matches that I forget where it got lost somewhere early. I mean, it wasn't anywhere just sitting on the ground there. It was somehow didn't end up in the helicopter. But that
Wow.
was really the moment. I know that it sounds sort of simple and basic, but where you
Sure.
realize, like, wait, we are in a lot of trouble if we can't start a fire. And I've got, maybe 1 liter of water with me, and I might have to make that last some days because we might not be able to melt anything for a while. And the weather is really unpredictable and can get bad. And sometimes it is days before helicopters can pick you up. It's not uncommon for us to say, okay, we're ready to leave camp, and it takes 4 or 5 days for the weather to clear up for the helicopters to come get us. So I know that sounds maybe
No, no,
wasn't
no.
a
This
comment
is
of physical
incredibly
danger,
important.
but that was actually the scariest thing that ever happened to us in Antarctica. This moment of, uh-oh, did we get all the way out here and won't be able to drink any water for who knows? So it's kind of
Oh,
wild. Other than that, I will say we do a lot to mitigate risks, right? We don't take a lot of risks because it's not a great place to get hurt. And again, the main thing is simply that, yeah, we're so remote, it might be days before a helicopter can come get you. So if
mm,
you do have a slip and fall and twist an ankle or break an ankle or you a wrist or something, yeah, it hopefully a helicopter could come get you, but it might take a long time. So we yeah, sometimes I get accused a little bit of not having enough fun, like, but we don't go sledding. Sometimes there's some great places like, man, I want to sled down that, but also we can wait till the field work's done and then we can go
sure.
do. You don't want to twist a knee or get stuck on something while you're out there because it can sometimes, yeah, it can be a long time before you can get real medical help.
Oh my
We get
goodness.
pretty, yeah, we get pretty risk averse while we're out there and really try
Goodness.
and all right, let's walk the safest ways we can. Let's make sure we're not I worry a lot about twisted ankles, right? That's a simple, you
Sure.
might just slip and have a normal fall, but you can really wreck an ankle and partly because I've done that a lot in my
Oh
in my days.
no.
Not well,
No.
not in Antarctica, not, but just playing basketball or soccer or
Sure.
something,
Sure.
right? I've had some pretty bad twisted ankles before, and so I'm often emphasizing like, yeah, we need to keep our feet healthy because
Mhm.
that's how we're doing everything
Oh my
while we're out
goodness.
here. And so having
Yeah.
enough clean socks and not getting blisters, not twisting things is really
High
important.
boots so that
Yeah,
your ankle doesn't contort.
yeah. We've got giant, big, high ankle boots to give us lots of support, and
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I worry a lot about while
Oh
we're
my goodness. Yeah, a common question on medical boards actually. I just took USMLE Step 2. It's a 9-hour exam. I just took it like
Whew,
yesterday.
okay.
So
Wow, congrats.
a common question is like Ottawa ankle rules and like
Yeah,
when do you know when to x-ray an ankle versus just leave it versus
yep,
so I can't wait when I become a doctor and I go on
yep,
Antarctic expeditions. I can kind of
yeah,
check out people's ankles and
yep,
that's fun. That's fun.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we've not on my trips, we've not had big injuries, but we have had like overuse injuries, little
oh
stretch
yeah.
fractures that have developed in somebody's heel because of just yeah, the constant pounding and wearing these heavy packs and bodies slowly breaking down. So we've avoided the major injuries, but we have had all right, after a month of this, bodies do start to break down, and you might. know this better than I do, but it does feel like, we're out in the cold so much that whatever we're eating, it feels like we're burning it to stay warm. And it doesn't feel like we get stronger. It doesn't feel like I'm building muscle. For as active as I am, you think, oh, maybe my legs are getting stronger, but I feel like I'm just losing weight and losing
Wow.
muscle after all that. Because, yeah, just being in the cold, I don't know that I can really eat enough to stay even at my same weight. I know I'm not
Oh
losing
my
lots of weight,
goodness.
but it
Yeah.
is interesting that I don't feel like I don't think I'm building muscle down there. I'm
Are
just
you measuring yourself? Like, this is a fascinating
no,
question.
I see. I
Can
don't,
you
I
do,
don't.
I'm
It's
very
so
curious.
anecdotal, but by
Sure.
the end of it, I don't feel like I've gotten any bigger. If anything, I feel like, yeah, I'm maybe smaller. And again, I'm not losing massive amounts of weight or anything, but it does feel hard to just eat enough to even just stay warm. And you
Yes,
realize, like, yeah, we're warm-blooded, and we gotta have a lot of calories to stay warm out there. So
absolutely.
that's a really interesting thing of it is. Yeah, we're not always hungry, but you are like, I need to keep eating. Yeah, you get cold and you just need to eat. So, yeah,
Yes. Yes. And speaking of which, you're taking a lot of students who may have never known what it's like to do any of this.
yeah,
Um, and so there's, I'm sure there are so many lessons of leadership here, especially when you're leading teams that might otherwise have zero experience,
yeah.
undergraduate students. And so, what do you think Antarctica has taught you about leadership that you don't think could be learned in a classroom?
Yeah, the thing I'm using a lot now for sort of, I don't know, the framework that we talk about is really something actually from the National Outdoor Leadership School, NOLS, which is an outdoor kind of, and they do a lot of outdoor education, outdoor expedition things and training things. Um, and they have this concept that they've really built over the years that they call expedition behavior. And it's kind of, different ways that we do have to behave a little differently when we're on these trips, maybe than we would at home, because we really need to make sure that the group stays healthy and alive and able to do the work, right? Thriving to be able to do this work so that, that we have to we have to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of each other is a big part of it. We need to be able to communicate and resolve conflicts and have dignity and respect for each other that way. And so I like to teach a lot about this and use a lot of these kind of examples and frameworks that Knowles has from a lot of this. And they're really good. And one thing that I also really like is that they really apply to lots of life experiences.
Oh,
This
yes.
this expedition behavior works really well, all right, out in the field when we're camping, but it also works really well in the lab.
Hmm.
And when we're interacting with each other, and all right, we need to make sure we're still being respectful and supportive and kind to each other, and that we're again taking care of ourselves so we can help each other that way. Works in the lab, works in the classroom. I mean, they like to say it works in the boardroom, right? It is a way and a habit that you really get into in terms of just having a good attitude, realizing things are going to go wrong. Can't control all that, but we can control our response to things and our attitude about a lot of things. And so, yeah, I really like a lot of this concept of expedition behavior that we use
Hmm.
while we're down there. And that's something that, yeah, again, those are life lessons that apply to lots of different environments that I really like.
Yeah.
It's rare now that anyone does science alone. And sure, there are a handful of sole scientists, but we're all working in teams, and this expedition behavior really is about teamwork and how to get along with others. And sure, know your job and what your role on the team is, but supporting each other and treating each other, yeah, kindly and with respect to do get the group work done as well. So
Yes.
that's something I've really grown to appreciate and really like kind of teaching about a lot, especially with these Antarctica trips. But honestly, I start bringing it into all of my classes now, and it's how we behave in the classroom and when people are asking questions or need help with things, and it's something that I think applies to a lot of situations. It's really a great framework.
Yes. Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing these highly generalizable leadership lessons as well. That's partially why I invite people from so many diverse fields to this podcast. It's really
Yeah.
incredible what you can learn from so many people. And I'm wondering if you have any words of advice as well for our audience of early career researchers and scientists and medical doctors eager to kind of change the world.
Yeah, I'm not sure I always have the most inspiring advice, but I do often sort of again I like to tease myself that I do have delusions of grandeur. I got into this and I still like being a professor because I do think I'm just trying to save the planet. That's my baseline goal here is I just want let's make sure the Earth is all right. And I am a big believer though that we all save the planet through lots of little ways,
Mm.
right? I think one lesson from geology that I really like is, that slow evolutions can totally reshape the planet. They might take a while, but plates moving at centimeters a year can totally re-scramble the continents, and we go from supercontinents to giant oceans and lots of things over millions of years. But those small little incremental changes add up over time. And so one of the things I really appreciate is, yeah, all the small little things that we can do sometimes might feel sort of futile, but I do think they matter, and they keep me motivated and excited. So sure, recycling that aluminum can, and sometimes you're like, what's the point? But I actually think, no, all the little things do matter to all of that. The again, one of those lessons from geology is that it's taken billions of years of Earth's history and slow evolution to make this planet that we're on, and it is really fragile, and it took a long time to make, and we should take care of it better. And yes, even all those slow little impacts that we can make are going to help, and they will add up, and they will make it a little bit better. And so there's some things I like with that, and the thing that I also really like from a lot of these Antarctic expeditions is that we really do have to take care of each other. So I like, all right, I mean, I am trying to save the planet, but there's also an element of, well, we need to take care of each other. One of the things that is really nice about being in Antarctica is how apparent that is to us. Like, all right, there are just five of us here. We got to make sure we get along for this 2 month expedition. We got to make sure we're all okay. We all want to come out of this in good spirits, not just alive, but again, really thriving and having good spirits and really enjoying it. And these are kind of life-changing, or at least, I mean, incredible moments. We all want to have a good one while we're there, and let's make sure we're helping each other do that while we're there. And yeah, and so it's keeping that spirit alive too of, all right, let's take care of each other and the planet while we're here. And in some ways, those are about the only two lessons we might have in life, right? Take care of your home, take care of each other, and you'll do pretty well.
Wow. What an inspiring note to end on. Thank you so much. And especially, as me and a lot of my colleagues as well who are listening to this podcast are entering residency programs,
Yeah,
a lot of the questions the program directors are asking are, can we trust you for 7 years of neurosurgery residency?
yeah,
You're only two people per class
yeah,
and for the entirety of like Yale University.
yeah,
And we have to count on you only because the other
yeah,
person's sleeping.
yeah,
Like, so we need to know that you're trustworthy, dependable. And I
yeah,
think the three things are able, affable, and able, or
yeah,
able, affable, and available. That's it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you have those three, you're good for a surgery resident. So it's very
yeah,
interesting how a lot of these elite kind of groups have the same kind of specifications and
yeah,
criteria and goals. So
yeah. No, that is really interesting, and a lot of it to me is teamwork and team playing, and then what's sure knowing your role on it, but also being willing to help others and being available to do those kind of things. And affable for all of that. That's good. I like that. I like that alliteration there.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So thank you so much. I wanted to be very respectful of your time, obviously, but thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. It's enjoyable, and yeah, all the best to you and your podcast and your career here. Sounds like yeah, you're excited to get some test results back and figure out where the next steps are. Yeah,
We'll see. But
good.
thank you so much. And this is Cameron Sabat from Cutting to the Case, signing off.